عملا معي المودة والصداقة.
Good afternoon. You're watching the English newscast on Future Television. I'm Yumna Naufal, and these are today's top stories. Prime Minister Saad Hariri chairs a cabinet meeting at the Grand Sarai where discussions tackle several issues amid reports saying the electoral law will not be the focus of discussions. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says that Russia's return to the Arab League would allow the organization to play a role in finding a political solution to the conflict. And Israeli police begin evicting dozens of hardline Jewish settlers from a wildcat outpost just hours after unveiling plans for 3,000 new homes. Prime Minister Saad Hariri is chairing a cabinet meeting at the Grand Sarai where discussions earlier this morning tackled several issues amid reports saying the electoral law will not be the focus of discussions. Hariri commenced the session saying when the government pledges in its ministerial statement on the priority to stage the elections, it does not separate between this end and the efforts to find a new election law. Meanwhile, Interior Minister Nuhad al-Mashnou assures that the cabinet discussions will not tackle election law, saying it is likely to be discussed next week at the Babda Palace. In light of the political debate surrounding the controversial electoral law, which brought differences between Lebanon's political parties, Hariri is assuring that his relations with President Michel Aoun are firm and unwavering. The president, he said, and I are on the same terms. I want to appease those betting on sabotaging relations between the ruling sides. In light of the political flurry over agreeing on an electoral law, and all of the approval of the parties, Progressive Socialist Party leader Walid Jambla took to Twitter to say that he is calling for the implementation of the Taif agreement and labeling threats about the vacuum of the parliament as unconstitutional. The PSP categorically rejects a hybrid electoral law proposed by Free Patriotic Movement chief Gibran Bassil and all other proposals that contain proportional representation. The party has warned that any law containing proportional representation would marginalize the minority Druze community. Hezbollah, meanwhile, has repeatedly called for an electoral law fully based on proportional representation, but other political parties, especially the Future Movement and the PSP, have rejected the proposal. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov is saying that Syria's return to the Arab League would allow the organization to play a role to find a political solution to the crisis. The League could play a more important, more effective role if the Syrian government was part of the organization. Lavrov, whose country is a key ally of the Damascus regime and also a broker in peace efforts, told a press conference in the Emirati capital. He said Syria was a legitimate member of the United Nations and yet cannot take part in discussions inside the Arab League. But Arab League chief Ahmed Abulghait, who was also at the press conference, ruled out an early return of Syria to the Cairo-based organization. Any decision was up to the League's 21 other members, he said, adding that the issue is not on the current agenda and would only be raised when a political settlement was in sight for Syria's almost 6-year-old civil war. Israeli police began evicting dozens of hardline Jewish settlers from a wildcat outpost earlier this morning, just hours after unveiling plans for 3,000 new homes in other West Bank settlements. The announcement of new settler homes is the fourth time U.S. President Donald Trump took office less than 2 weeks ago, having signaled a softer stance on Israeli settlement building. It is seen as a sop to supporters of the Amana outpost, where hundreds of police officers moved in to carry out the evictions after the High Court determined the homes were built on private Palestinian land. The accelerated settlement expansion has deeply concerned those seeking to salvage a two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The international community considers all Jewish settlements on occupied Palestinian land as illegal and regards their construction as the biggest obstacle to a peaceful settlement of the conflict. Coming up next, we interview John Arvosis live from New York to discuss the Trump ban on Muslims. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. The Iraqi Arab American community in Michigan says that it is torn when it comes to how they feel about Donald Trump's ban on Muslims. The ban came out in the form of an executive order issued by the United States president. And under the executive order released on Friday, travelers from Iran, Iraq, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen may not enter the United States for at least 90 days. Not too far from Dearborn, Michigan, at Troy, where some 50,000 Chaldean Iraqi Christians lived, many of whom have proudly voted for Donald Trump. There was, however, mixed feelings when it came to the ban. Iraq's prime minister on Tuesday said the country would not retaliate to Trump's travel ban against Iraqi nationals because it did not want to lose Washington's cooperation in the war on the Islamic State. And on the line with us live from New York is Democratic political consultant and the editor of America Blog, one of the U.S.'s oldest and most influential political blogs, is John Arvosis. Thank you for being with us.
No, thank you.
John, just 12 days in, and the President of the United States has kept to his every promise, and in a very ambitious manner, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and that's the problem. It was interesting talking to a number of folks leading up to the election on the Republican side, who were Trump supporters. They kept telling me, don't worry, he's not going to do what he says. Congress will stop him. Nobody crazy ever gets elected president. And in fact, yeah, that's what happened.
There have been just yesterday legal challenges to Trump's first moves on immigration also spread, with 3 states suing over his executive order, saying that it is conflicting with the First Amendment of the Constitution and the freedom of religion.
Yes, one of the biggest problems is that Trump made the mistake early on of basically calling this a Muslim ban. I think there's a video of him saying, my Muslim ban, but we need to find a way to make it legal.
But Homeland Security officials are defending and trying to I don't know if they're trying to back away from the specific term Muslim ban and saying this is not a Muslim ban, it's just a temporary pause to allow officials to have a better vetting and, for national security purposes.
Well, that's what they're trying to say. The thing is, Barack Obama is no longer president. Donald Trump is getting his people in power, and now the government agencies, just like in your country or anywhere else, the government agencies are going to line up with the president, right? So, of course, Homeland Security is going to defend this. What's been interesting is, first they kept telling us, it's not about Muslims. Now Trump and his press secretary yesterday were arguing, it's not about a ban. And, both of these are words that they've been using. The bottom line is it's really kind of difficult for me as an American because we've been incredibly frustrated.
I know, and New York is one of the 3 states that is, challenging and suing to challenge this order. Yeah. Oh,
I'm not hearing you now.
Can you hear me? I was saying that New York. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you now.
I was saying that New York, as well as Massachusetts and Washington, is one of the 3 states, the one you're in, that is suing against this order.
And I think we're going to get more than that. What I was going to say is I think there's an interesting sort of dichotomy in that Americans, like everybody around the world, are very worried about terrorism. Because of September 11th, I think we do have a certain sensitivity where perhaps sometimes we can overreact. Fair enough. But what Trump did was so over the top. Nobody believes. I just saw a poll this morning. 1/3 of Americans believe that Donald Trump's Muslim ban is going to make the country safer. No one thinks this is actually the right way to do it. But the problem is, this is Donald Trump. It's, we say in cowboy, shoot first, ask questions later.
Well, I know you say no one thinks, but, reactions from around the world and within the United States aren't all negative. Some politicians, like Geert Wilders of the Netherlands, praised Mr. Trump on Twitter, and he said, quote, "I would do the same. Hope you'll add more Islamic countries like Saudi Arabia soon." And some policy experts also are wondering why countries such as Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan, even Lebanon weren't included when many terrorists had been born there.
A lot of people here are asking that question. I was watching just on CNN yesterday and the day before. People, I think it's 15 or 16 of the 19, I think 15 of the 19 terrorists who did 9/11 here in the States were from Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia funds a lot of really bad people around the world, to use Donald Trump's phrase, yet Saudi Arabia wasn't included in the ban. This was Donald Trump being Donald Trump. He's not a very bright man. He's very impulsive, and he does things for show. He's a showman, but he's not a statesman. So that it's not surprising he would do something that doesn't really have any practical effect.
I know, but John, we can't deny that there are people who do back up this order, and some people have come in and said, okay, maybe it should have been this, but a little more nuanced, right? Because we're hearing about a lot of problems with green card holders, doctors, students, people that just left for a vacation and can't even return now. So, you know, there has to be exceptions have not been taken in. It was just like a total ban. So
I lost your voice again. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, there you go. Okay. What I was going to say is, I think I've worked in politics now for 30 years. You are always going to have 25 to 30% of the country that will support something crazy in a poll. They just will. So that I'm not surprised some people are defending this. I'm not surprised a far right nut in the Netherlands is defending this. David Duke today came out and defended Trump's crazy ideas. David Duke is our former leader of the Ku Klux Klan here in the States, who's a racist lunatic. Trump has empowered all of these people, absolutely, and you're always going to get, like I said, maybe 30% of the public that's going to support any crazy idea. What's important is the people in the middle. Will Donald Trump be able to keep that 10% or so of normal people who maybe go back and forth in politics? And I think he's losing them. It's going to take a while, but I think it's begun. I mean, I'm hopeful, even though I'm not hopeful at all.
It's interesting that you said some people were talking, you know, especially people that have been affected by 9/11. A lot of people say, I've been reading, say they do feel safer. Some people, a lot of people say they don't feel safer. And Iran, which is one of the countries named in the order, well, Iran's Ministry of Foreign Affairs called the ban a clear insult, obviously, to the Islamic world, but also a great gift to extremists and their supporters. And many are arguing that this can also encourage terrorism.
Yes, a lot of the experts that we've had here on TV in the States, and I'm glad they've been speaking out, have been saying that this is exactly what ISIS would want us to do, to create this divide between, you know, the infidels and the faithful. And I forget the words that they use, but they've got sort of specific terms to describe exactly the kind of people Donald Trump is trying to describe the United States as. So no, he's absolutely, I mean, I won't defend this guy. He came out and basically said Muslims are terrorists. The thing is, he's been saying this throughout the campaign as well. So it's not surprising in the sense that this is Donald Trump. Like I said, the only way I can defend this is by saying half of us don't agree with him. That's all I can tell you.
I hear what you're saying, and you know, the concern, I think, is, you know, this is just 12 days in, right? And Donald Trump is the United States president, whether some people like it or not. But what we see is what we've seen in the last 12 days with the Women's March, and then with the refugee status, the refugee asylum being taken away, and the ban. We've been seeing the country, what seems to be just a lot more divisive. And the concern is going through and going in, this is just 12 days in, how are things going to pan out? Because the divisions seem to be growing further, you know, they seem to be growing bigger and bigger as opposed to kind of bridging the gap there.
That concerns me a lot, and I think it's going to get a lot worse. What has been interesting in the last few days, we've had several conservative writers who are very established on the right, you know, with Donald Trump's party, have said that they see this ending badly, meaning Trump could be impeached. He could be removed from office by the Congress. He could be removed under the Constitution, where basically, it's complicated, but
right, because many Republicans disagree with this. I know Senator John McCain said this was unconstitutional. This was un-American. We've been hearing this un-American term a lot during since Friday.
And it's not enough Republicans, but you've had, as you said, John McCain, Lindsey Graham, Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio's 50-50. The problem you have, and I used to work in the U.S. Congress years ago, is that when there's a new president, his party wants to defend him. You know, so that for senators and congressmen right now, they don't really want to attack Donald Trump, even if they think Donald Trump is crazy, even if they think he's hurting the country.
What about the voters? What about the voters, John? The voters. I mean,
the voters.
He did win.
No, the voter. Yep. Go on.
He did win. I know people are always arguing about the popular vote, but He won the way, all presidents of the United States have won, with the Electoral College. And this is the United States president, the 45th.
What happens with the voters is they too like to give the president a honeymoon, as we call it. The first 100 days or so, give him a chance to prove himself. They tend to be very defending of him. What we've seen with Donald Trump is he's dropped in the polls several points during his transition right now, during his first week in the presidency. So actually, the voters have started to already sour on Donald Trump more than they were before. 51% now disapprove of Donald Trump. That has never happened in a presidency this early. So again, these are small things. All we can do is look for the small positive things here, right? But we are seeing small cracks showing that Trump is, at least, even though he's doing very bad things, we're starting to see it wearing away at his support. But this is going to take a year or 2 years, I think, to really take him down. All right. Unfortunately.
Well, thank you for being with us, John Aravosis, Democratic political consultant and the editor of America Blog. No, you'll have to come back and tell us as time goes by. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
And this marks the end of a bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our headlines. Prime Minister Saad Hariri chairs a cabinet meeting at the Grand Sarai where discussions tackle several issues amid reports the electoral law is not the focus. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says that Syria's return to the Arab League would allow the organization to play a role in finding a solution to the country's conflict. And Israeli police begin evicting dozens of hardline Jewish settlers from a wildcat outpost just hours after unveiling plans for 3,000 new homes in other West Bank settlements. Those are your Wednesday headlines live on Future Television. Thank you for tuning in, and stay with us and tune in tomorrow for all the latest again. Bye.
حاملا معي المودة والصداقة